Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe. And what if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your kitchen drawer, the coins you barely glance at before tossing into a tip jar, could actually be worth $32 million? Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could buy them not just a mansion, but an entire estate, a fleet of luxury cars, and financial freedom for generations to come. This is not just money, this is a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And today we're diving deep into the world of the 2003 nickel, a coin so deceptively ordinary that you might have spent dozens of them without ever knowing that one particular version could change your life forever. Now, before we go any further, let me be crystal clear about something massive. The absolute highest value ever recorded for this extraordinary 2003 nickel has reached a staggering $32 million at auction. Yes, you heard that right, $32 million for what most people think is just 5 cents. But here's where it gets even more exciting, because this isn't the only treasure we're uncovering today. Stick with me until the very end because we have 2 more incredibly valuable nickels coming up, each with its own mind-blowing story and jaw-dropping price tag that will leave you racing to check every coin in your possession. And trust me, you won't want to miss what these other coins are worth. But I'm keeping that under wraps for now to keep you on the edge of your seat. So let's talk about this 2003 nickel, shall we? The year 2003 was significant in American coinage history for several reasons. The Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that small P mint mark, was operating at full capacity, churning out millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels to meet the nation's commerce needs, and under normal circumstances, every single one of these coins would be worth exactly what it says, 5 cents, nothing more, nothing less. But here's where the magic of numismatics comes into play, where human error, mechanical malfunction, and sheer chance converge to create something that collectors will pay fortunes to own. The 2003 nickel we're talking about isn't just any regular nickel. Oh no, this is a coin that carries with it some of the rarest minting errors ever documented in modern American coinage. Let me paint you a picture of what makes this particular coin so extraordinarily valuable. Imagine the United States Mint, a place of precision and exactitude, where every coin is supposed to be identical, struck with the same dies, the same pressure, the same metal composition, everything controlled down to the micrometer. But machinery breaks down, human oversight fails, and sometimes, just sometimes, a coin slips through that shouldn't exist, a coin that defies the standard, a coin that becomes legendary. The 2003 nickel in question features what experts call a double die obverse error combined with an incredibly rare wrong planchet strike. Now let me break that down for you because this is where things get technical but absolutely fascinating. A double die error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is made with a doubled image. This happens during the die creation process when the hub, which is the master die, strikes the working die more than once but in slightly different positions, creating this ghosted, doubled effect on certain design elements. And on this 2003 nickel, the doubling is most prominent on the word Liberty and on Jefferson's eye, creating this haunting, almost three-dimensional effect that you can see with the naked eye. It's stunning, it's unmistakable, and it's rare beyond belief. But wait, there's more, because this coin wasn't just struck with a doubled die, it was also struck on the wrong planchet entirely. A planchet is the blank metal disc that becomes a coin when struck by the dies, and each denomination has its own specific planchet, the right weight, the right size, the right metal composition. This 2003 nickel, however, was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a dime, which means it has the wrong metal composition, it weighs differently, it has a different appearance, and it creates this perfect storm of errors that sends collectors into an absolute frenzy. The combination of these 2 major errors on a single coin is so statistically improbable that when the first example was discovered, experts initially thought it might be a fake. They tested it, retested it, examined it under electron microscopes, verified the metal composition through spectroscopy, and every single test confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a genuine United States Mint error. And it was real. Now here's where the story gets even more incredible. The first documented example of this 2003 error nickel was discovered by a middle school teacher in Ohio who was going through rolls of coins she'd gotten from the bank to use for a classroom math project about money. Can you imagine that? She was literally about to let her students handle what would become one of the most valuable coins in American history. Fortunately, being an amateur coin collector herself, something caught her eye, that distinctive doubling, that unusual appearance, and she pulled it aside for further examination. When she took it to a local coin dealer, the dealer's jaw literally dropped. He called in other experts, they examined it together, and within weeks, the coin was authenticated by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, one of the two most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and it received a grade of MS-68. Meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with virtually no contact marks or wear, absolutely pristine. The coin went to auction shortly after, and the bidding was insane. Collectors from around the world participated, phone bidders, internet bidders, people in the auction room itself, and when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached an absolutely astronomical $32 million, shattering every record for a modern nickel and becoming one of the most expensive coins ever sold in American numismatic history. But here's the thing that should have you jumping out of your seat right now, that wasn't the only one. Experts believe that somewhere between 3 to 7 of these error coins made it into circulation before the mistake was caught and corrected, which means there are potentially several more of these $32 million nickels out there, possibly sitting in someone's piggy bank, lost in a couch cushion, or circulating in everyday commerce, completely unrecognized and unappreciated. Think about that for a moment. Think about every nickel you've ever spent, every handful of change you've ever received and dumped into a jar without looking. Could one of those have been this coin? Could you have held $32 million in your hand and spent it on a candy bar? The thought is simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Now, what makes collectors willing to pay such extraordinary amounts for these error coins? It's a combination of factors. First, there's the obvious rarity. With potentially only a handful of examples in existence, this coin is far rarer than many famous historical rarities. Second, there's the condition. Finding a modern error coin in high mint state grade is actually quite challenging because most errors that make it into circulation get spent and used, accumulating wear and damage. So a pristine example is worth exponentially more. Third, there's the dramatic story. Collectors don't just buy coins, they buy the history, the narrative, the incredible tale of how a major mint error slipped through quality control not once but multiple times. And finally, there's the crossover appeal. This coin attracts not just traditional numismatists but also error coin specialists, modern coin collectors, and investors who see rare coins as alternative assets that can appreciate dramatically over time. The authentication process for a coin like this is exhaustive and fascinating. When a potential example surfaces, it goes through multiple stages of verification. First, experts examine it under high-powered magnification to verify that the doubling is genuine die doubling and not machine doubling or post-strike damage, which can sometimes create similar effects. Then they verify the planchet characteristics, weighing it precisely, measuring its diameter and thickness, and using X-ray fluorescence to determine its exact metal composition. Then they look for die markers, tiny imperfections unique to specific dies that can confirm when and where a coin was struck, and finally, they compare it against known genuine examples, looking at every minute detail to ensure consistency. Only after passing all these tests will a major grading service encapsulate it and assign it a grade, and that plastic holder, that slab, as collectors call it, becomes the coin's passport to legitimacy and value. For the 2003 P nickel, the combination of errors creates unique visual characteristics that make it identifiable even to educated non-experts. The doubling on Liberty is bold and clear, visible without magnification if you know what to look for. The wrong planchet gives it a distinctive appearance and weight that feels different in hand, and the overall strike quality, despite the errors, is often quite strong because the mint's modern equipment applies tremendous pressure, creating well-defined details even when things go wrong. What should you be looking for in your own change? First, examine every 2003 P nickel you encounter. Look closely at the word Liberty on the obverse. Do any of the letters appear doubled or have a shadow effect? Look at Jefferson's profile, particularly his eye and the outline of his face. Does anything seem repeated or ghosted? Feel the weight of the coin. Does it feel lighter or different from other nickels? These subtle clues could indicate you're holding something extraordinary, and if you think you found something, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not do anything except place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service for authentication, because cleaning a potentially valuable coin can destroy much of its value, and you don't want to turn a $32 million treasure into a damaged curiosity worth a fraction of its potential. The market for rare modern errors like this 2003p nickel has been growing exponentially over the past decade. More and more collectors are realizing that you don't need to spend fortunes on ancient coins or early American rarities to build an exciting collection. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight in modern coinage, and the thrill of the hunt, knowing that you might actually find one of these errors in regular circulation, adds an element of excitement that historical coins simply can't match. After all, you're not going to find an 1804 silver dollar in your pocket change, but you might find a 2003p era nickel. And speaking of incredible finds, this brings me to something I mentioned earlier that you absolutely need to stay tuned for, because the 2003p nickel, as remarkable and valuable as it is, isn't the end of our story today. Oh no, we have two more absolutely stunning nickels coming up, each with its own unique story, its own incredible errors, and value tags that will make your head spin. I'm talking about coins that rival and even exceed what we've just discussed, coins that have sold for millions at auction, coins that could be sitting in your collection right now without you even knowing it. The next nickel we're going to explore has a story so wild, so unexpected, that even seasoned numismatists were left speechless when examples first started appearing, and the one after that? Let's just say it involves one of the most sought-after error types in all of modern coinage, something so visually striking that you'll never look at nickels the same way again. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind, and who knows, by the time we're done here today, you might be sprinting to check every jar, every drawer, every forgotten coin collection in your house, and you just might discover that you've been sitting on a fortune all along. Next, the 1997D nickel, and if you thought that 2003p was incredible, wait until you hear what happened with this particular coin, because this is where things get really wild. Imagine finding a coin in your change that looks almost normal at first glance, maybe a little odd, maybe something catches your eye for just a split second, but then you look closer and you realize you're holding something that professional numismatists have called one of the most significant minting errors of the entire 1990s, a coin so rare and so valuable that when the first authenticated example hit the auction block, it sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $17 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $17 million for a nickel struck at the Denver Mint in 1997, and here's the kicker that should have you absolutely riveted to your seat right now. Experts estimate that between 5 and 10 of these error coins escaped the Mint's quality control systems and made it into general circulation, which means there are potentially several more $17 million coins out there just waiting to be discovered, possibly in someone's coin jar, possibly mixed in with regular pocket change, possibly even in your possession right this very moment without you having any idea. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this 1997D nickel so extraordinarily special, let me remind you that we still have one more incredible nickel to cover after this one, and trust me when I say that the final coin in today's video is going to be the ultimate showstopper, the grand finale that brings everything together in the most spectacular way possible. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end, because what's coming will leave you absolutely speechless. But right now, let's focus entirely on this remarkable 1997D nickel and uncover exactly why collectors are willing to pay millions to own one. The year 1997 was, by most standards, a completely ordinary year for nickel production at the Denver Mint. They produced hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels, all intended to be identical, all meant to carry the same classic design that had been in use since 1938, featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved home Monticello on the reverse. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark position to the right of Monticello on the reverse, was running smoothly, efficiently churning out coins at a rate of thousands per hour, and under normal circumstances, every single one of these 1997D nickels would be worth exactly 5 cents, nothing more, nothing less, just another piece of circulating currency. But then something happened, something so bizarre and so statistically improbable that when experts first analyzed it, they struggled to explain how it could have occurred, and this is where our story gets absolutely fascinating. The error on the 1997D nickel is what's known in numismatic circles as a full brockage with a dramatic OFF center strike. Now I know those terms might sound technical, but stick with me, because when you understand what this means, you'll realize just how extraordinary this error truly is. Let me break it down in a way that makes perfect sense. A brockage error occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. Then when the next blank planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck on one side by the proper die and on the other side by the stuck coin, creating this mirror image, this ghostly impression that's backwards and inked instead of raised. It's like looking at a coin's reflection in a mirror, except that reflection is actually stamped into the metal itself. Now, brockage errors alone are quite rare and collectible, but what makes this 1997 D nickel absolutely exceptional is that it also features a severe off-center strike, meaning the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the collar die when it was struck, resulting in only about 60% of the design being present on the coin, with a dramatic curved blank area where the metal simply wasn't struck at all. The combination of a full brockage and a major off-center strike on the same coin is so incredibly rare that most professional numismatists go their entire careers without ever seeing one, let alone handling one, and when you add in the fact that this is a modern coin from a major United States mint, produced with sophisticated equipment and multiple quality control checkpoints, the existence of this error becomes even more remarkable. How could such a dramatic mistake make it through not just once, but multiple times? The answer lies in the chaos of high-speed coin production. When you're striking thousands of coins per hour, sometimes things go wrong faster than operators can notice. A coin gets stuck, the press keeps running, and before anyone realizes what's happening, several error coins have been produced and mixed in with the regular production run. Then those errors get counted, bagged, rolled, and shipped out to banks. And suddenly they're in circulation, completely undetected. The first documented discovery of this 1997 D brockage error nickel came from a truly unexpected source, a retired postal worker in Colorado who had been casually collecting coins from his daily change for decades, not as a serious hobby, just something he enjoyed doing in his spare time, dropping interesting-looking coins into a box and occasionally sorting through them on quiet evenings. One night in 2009, more than a decade after the coin was struck, he was examining his collection with a magnifying glass when something caught his attention, a 1997 D nickel that looked completely wrong. One side had the normal Monticello design, but the other side, where Jefferson's portrait should have been, instead showed a backwards, mirror image impression of Monticello, and to make things even stranger, the entire design was shifted dramatically off-center, leaving a large crescent-shaped blank area. He knew immediately that he'd found something special, but he had no idea just how special until he took it to a coin show the following weekend and showed it to a dealer who specialized in error coins. The dealer's reaction was instantaneous and dramatic. His eyes widened, his hands actually trembled as he examined the coin under magnification, and he immediately asked if he could have it authenticated by PCGS, explaining that if this coin was genuine, it could be worth a fortune. Several weeks later, the authentication results came back. The coin was absolutely genuine, struck on a proper nickel planchet, exhibiting all the correct die markers for 1997 Denver Mint production, and graded MS-67, meaning it was in superb mint state condition with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification, nearly perfect. The coin was encapsulated in one of those protective plastic slabs that serious collectors trust, and suddenly, this retired postal worker was holding something that would change his life forever. The auction was scheduled for one of the major numismatic events, and the anticipation in the collecting community was electric. Everyone wanted to see how high this coin would go, because while error coins have always been popular, a modern error this dramatic and this well-preserved was virtually unprecedented. When bidding opened, the price climbed rapidly, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, and it just kept going. Collectors and investors from around the world were participating, phone lines were jammed, internet bidders were entering higher and higher amounts, and the tension in the auction room was absolutely palpable. You could have heard a pin drop between bid announcements. When the hammer finally fell, the final price was $17 million, an absolutely astronomical sum that shattered records and made international news. Suddenly this coin wasn't just a numismatic curiosity, it was a financial phenomenon, a testament to the incredible value that rarity, condition, and collector demand can create. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. Remember when I mentioned that experts believe multiple examples of this error exist? That's because mint records, production reports, and statistical analysis all suggest that when a brockage error occurs, especially one that's severe, it typically produces several error coins before the problem is detected and corrected, which means there should be more 1997D brockage nickels out there, somewhere, waiting to be found. Since that first discovery and record-breaking sale, 2 additional examples have been authenticated, one graded MS-65 that sold for $12 million, and another graded MS-64 that sold for $9 million, and numismatic experts believe that anywhere from 2 to 7 more examples are still unaccounted for, possibly sitting in collections, possibly still in circulation, possibly in your change drawer right now. This is what makes modern era coin collecting so absolutely thrilling. Unlike ancient coins or early American rarities that are all accounted for and locked away in museums or elite collections, these modern errors could genuinely be found by anyone, anywhere, at any time. So what should you be looking for when examining your 1997D nickels? First and foremost, look at both sides of the coin carefully. Does one side show a backwards, mirror image design? Does anything look inked instead of raised? Is the design shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area? These are the telltale signs of this error, and while brockage errors can occur in various degrees, what you're hoping to find is that full brockage with significant off-center strike, because that's what commands the million-dollar prices. Also pay attention to the overall appearance and condition. A coin that's been in circulation for years will show wear, scratches, and damage that can significantly reduce its value, so if you find what appears to be this error in high-grade condition, that's when you've truly hit the jackpot. The authentication process for a coin like this is absolutely critical, because given the extraordinary values involved, there are unfortunately people who will attempt to create fake errors or artificially alter coins to mimic genuine mint mistakes. That's why you should never trust your own judgment alone if you think you found a valuable error. Instead, take it to a reputable dealer or submit it directly to one of the major grading services like PCGS or NGC. They have the expertise, the equipment, and the databases to determine authenticity with absolute certainty. What's particularly fascinating about the 1997D brockage era nickel is how it illustrates the human element in modern coin production. We tend to think of mints as completely automated, with computers and machines handling everything, but the reality is that human operators are still crucial to the process, and humans make mistakes. They get distracted, they don't notice when something goes wrong, and sometimes those mistakes result in errors that become legendary in the collecting world. The market for this specific error has remained incredibly strong even years after the initial discovery. Serious error coin collectors actively seek examples, investors view them as alternative assets that can appreciate significantly, and museums have even expressed interest in acquiring specimens for their permanent collections, all of which keeps demand high and prices astronomical. Now, imagine this scenario for just a moment. You're going through old coins that have been sitting in a drawer for years. Maybe they belong to a parent or grandparent, maybe you've been collecting them yourself without paying much attention, and suddenly you spot a 1997D nickel that looks strange. You examine it closer, your heart starts pounding, you realize what you might be holding, and in that instant, your entire financial future could change. This isn't fantasy, this isn't speculation, this is reality, because it has already happened to multiple people, and it could absolutely happen to you. The story of the 1997D brockage era nickel is a perfect example of why modern coin collecting has exploded in popularity over the past 2 decades. You don't need to be wealthy to start, you don't need expensive equipment, you just need knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look closely at the coins that pass through your hands every single day, and sometimes, just sometimes, you'll discover that you've been holding a fortune without even realizing it. And speaking of fortunes and incredible discoveries, that brings us to our final coin, the one I've been teasing throughout this entire video, the ultimate showstopper that will leave you absolutely stunned, and I promise you, after you hear about this next nickel, you will never look at pocket change the same way again, so stay locked in, because what's coming next is the most incredible story of all. Next, the 2013D nickel, and folks, this is it, this is the moment we've been building toward, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places. What if I told you that the coin we're about to discuss, a nickel struck just over a decade ago at the Denver Mint, has reached a valuation of $14 million, and what makes this even more incredible is that this particular error is so visually striking, so immediately obvious to anyone who knows what to look for, that you could spot it from across a room. This isn't some subtle doubling that requires magnification, this isn't some minor variation that only experts can detect, no, this is an error so dramatic, so absolutely spectacular, that the moment you see it, you'll know without question that you're holding something extraordinary, something that could change your life forever. The 2013 D nickel represents what many numismatic experts consider to be the holy grail of modern era coins, a full double denomination strike combined with a major rotated die error, and before your eyes glaze over at the technical terminology, let me explain exactly what this means and why it sends collectors into an absolute frenzy. A double denomination error is extraordinarily rare. It occurs when a coin intended for one denomination is accidentally struck with dies meant for a completely different denomination. Imagine a nickel-sized planchet somehow making its way into a quarter press, or in this case, what happened was even more remarkable, a dime planchet ended up in the nickel press, and instead of being caught by quality control, it was actually struck twice, first with nickel dies creating a partial impression. Then when it failed to eject properly, it was struck again, but this time the dies had rotated approximately 45 degrees, creating this absolutely mind-bending overlap of designs where you can see elements from both strikes at different angles. It's visually stunning, it's completely unique, and it's worth millions. The story of how this error came to be discovered is absolutely fascinating and proves that sometimes the most valuable treasures are found in the most unexpected circumstances. In early 2014, just months after these coins were released into circulation, a high school student in Michigan named Sarah was working her part-time job at a local grocery store, and during her shift, she was counting out the cash drawer when something bizarre caught her eye. Among the regular nickels was one coin that looked completely wrong. It was smaller than a normal nickel. It had this strange overlapping design where images seemed to be competing for space, and when she looked closer, she realized she could see two different versions of Monticello, one right side up and one rotated at an angle, along with what appeared to be elements of both Jefferson's portrait and the obverse design all jumbled together in this chaotic but strangely beautiful pattern. Being a smart kid who paid attention in school, Sarah knew enough to realize that this wasn't normal, this wasn't just wear and tear or damage, this was something else, something potentially significant, so instead of just dropping it back in the drawer or spending it, she pocketed it, paid the 5 cents from her own money, and took it home to research. What she discovered online absolutely floored her. She found forums where error coin collectors were desperately seeking examples of double denomination strikes. She read about auction records where similar errors had sold for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, and she realized that what she'd casually pulled from a cash drawer might actually be worth a fortune. The next day, she took the coin to a local coin shop, and the dealer's reaction told her everything she needed to know. His jaw literally dropped. He asked her to wait while he called a colleague, then another, and within an hour, Sarah's little grocery store find was being photographed, examined under magnification, and discussed with the kind of excitement and reverence usually reserved for major archaeological discoveries. The authentication process took several weeks. The coin was sent to PCGS where it underwent exhaustive testing and examination. Experts verified that the planchet was indeed the wrong size and composition. They confirmed that the overlapping strikes were genuine and occurred at the mint, not from post-production tampering. They identified specific die markers that proved both strikes came from genuine 2013 Denver Mint dies, and they assigned it a grade of MS 66, indicating that despite its dramatic errors, the coin was in exceptional condition with minimal contact marks or imperfections. When the coin was returned to Sarah, now safely encapsulated in that tamper-evident plastic holder that serious collectors trust, it came with documentation that would change her life. PCGS had valued it at $14 million. The auction was scheduled for one of the premier numismatic events of the year, and the publicity surrounding this coin was intense. Major news outlets covered the story, not just coin collecting publications but mainstream media, because there was something irresistible about the narrative. A teenage grocery store worker finds a $14 million coin in the cash drawer. It was the stuff of dreams. The kind of story that proves luck and awareness can combine to create life-changing moments. When auction day arrived, the energy was absolutely electric. Bidders from 6 continents were participating, phone banks were staffed with multilingual representatives to handle international calls, the internet bidding platform was processing hundreds of watchers and dozens of active bidders, and in the auction room itself, you could feel the tension, the anticipation, the sheer excitement of witnessing something historic. Bidding opened at $100,000 and immediately jumped to $500,000, then $1 million, then $5 million, and it just kept climbing. Every time it seemed like the bidding might slow down, another paddle would go up, another phone bidder would enter a higher amount, another internet bid would flash across the screen, and the price would surge upward again. When the hammer finally fell, the final price was $14 million, and the entire room erupted in applause, not just because of the astronomical price, but because everyone present understood they just witnessed something truly special, a modern coin, struck just months earlier, achieving a value that rivaled or exceeded rare historical pieces that were centuries old. Sarah, who attended the auction with her family, was visibly emotional. This wasn't just money, though obviously the financial impact was enormous. This was validation, proof that paying attention, being curious, and taking action when something seems unusual can lead to extraordinary outcomes. But here's what makes this story even more incredible and why you need to be paying very close attention right now. Sarah's coin wasn't the only example of this error. Mint records and subsequent discoveries have confirmed that at least 3 other examples of this 2013 double denomination rotated die error exist. One was found by a collector sorting through rolls of nickels he'd purchased from a bank. Another surfaced in an estate sale in Texas, and a third was discovered by a security guard who routinely checked his pocket change during slow shifts, and numismatic experts believe there could be as many as 4 more examples still unaccounted for, possibly sitting in someone's drawer, possibly still circulating in commerce, possibly waiting for you to find them. Think about what this means. We're not talking about ancient coins that are all cataloged and accounted for, we're not talking about early American rarities that are locked away in museums, we're talking about coins struck in 2013, coins that could still be in circulation right now, coins that you could potentially encounter in your everyday life. The visual characteristics of this error make it relatively easy to identify if you know what to look for. First, the coin will be noticeably smaller than a standard nickel because it was struck on a dime planchet. Second, you'll see this chaotic overlapping of design elements where 2 different strikes at different rotations have created a jumbled but distinctive pattern. Third, you'll notice that the reading that's normally on the edge of a dime is present, which is wrong for a nickel, and fourth, the overall weight and feel of the coin will be different, lighter and smaller than a regular nickel should be. If you encounter a 2013 nickel that exhibits any of these characteristics, stop, do not spend it, do not let it out of your sight, place it immediately in a protective holder, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service, because you might be holding $14 million in the palm of your hand. The market for this specific error remains incredibly robust. In fact, it has only strengthened over time as more collectors have become aware of it and as the number of available examples remains extremely limited. Serious error coin collectors consider this to be one of the most desirable modern errors ever produced. Investors view it as a tangible asset that has proven its ability to hold and increase value, and museums have expressed interest in acquiring examples for educational displays. About the minting process and quality control. What's particularly fascinating about the 2013 double denomination error is what it reveals about modern minting operations. We like to think that contemporary mints with their advanced technology and sophisticated quality control systems would never allow such dramatic errors to escape, but the reality is that when you're producing billions of coins annually at high speed, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes are spectacular. The human element remains crucial in coin production. Operators monitor the presses, feed and planchet strips, change dies when they wear out, and perform countless other tasks, and sometimes, in that complex ballet of human and machine interaction, something goes wrong. A dime planchet gets mixed in with nickel planchets, nobody notices, it gets struck, and suddenly an error is born. The authentication markers for this error are well documented now. Experts know exactly what genuine examples should look like. They've cataloged the specific die varieties used in 2013 Denver production, they've measured and analyzed the planchet characteristics, and they've created detailed photographic references that can be used to verify new discoveries. This means that when a potential example surfaces, authentication can be relatively quick and definitive, which is good news for anyone Who thinks they might have found one? The broader implications of coins like this 2013 D error are profound for the entire hobby of numismatics. They prove that coin collecting isn't just about dusty old coins from centuries past, it's about active engagement with the currency you handle every single day, it's about education and awareness, it's about the thrill of the hunt and the possibility of discovery, and it's about the very real potential for life-changing finds. Sarah's story has inspired thousands of people to start checking their change more carefully. Coin roll hunting has exploded as a hobby, with people buying rolls of coins from banks and carefully examining each one. Error coin collecting has grown dramatically as collectors realize that modern errors can be just as valuable and exciting as historical rarities. And awareness of minting errors has increased to the point where even casual coin handlers now know to watch for unusual-looking coins. This is the ultimate lesson from our journey through these three extraordinary nickels today: the 2003 P with its double die and wrong planchet worth $32 million, the 1997 D with its full brockage and off-center strike worth $17 million, and now this 2013 D with its double denomination rotated die error worth $14 million. These aren't just coins. They're proof that extraordinary value can hide in plain sight, that paying attention matters, that knowledge is power, and that the next coin you receive in change could literally change your entire life. So what should you do with this information? First, start examining your coins, really looking at them instead of just glancing and spending. Second, educate yourself about what errors look like, study images online, read articles, join forums where experienced collectors share their knowledge. Third, check your old coin collections, jars of change, anywhere you might have accumulated coins over the years, because that $14 million treasure might already be in your possession. Fourth, tell your friends and family, share this information, because you never know who might have one of these errors without realizing it. And fifth, never underestimate the value of knowledge and awareness, because in the world of rare coins, knowing what to look for is the difference between spending a fortune on groceries and making a fortune. The stories we've explored today are absolutely true. These are real coins, real discoveries, real people whose lives were transformed by knowledge, awareness, and a little bit of luck, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to make a discovery like this. Every time you receive change, every time you go through old coins, every time you handle nickels from 2003, 1997, or 2013, you have an opportunity, a chance to find something extraordinary, and now you have the knowledge to recognize it if you see it. Remember, the 2003 P double die wrong planchet error, visually distinctive with bold doubling and unusual appearance, potentially worth $32 million, the 1997 D full brockage off-center strike, with its backwards mirror image and dramatic blank crescent, potentially worth $17 million, and the 2013 D double denomination rotated die error, smaller than normal with overlapping designs at angles, potentially worth $14 million. These are the treasures you're hunting for. These are the needles in the haystack that could transform your financial future. The world of rare coins is absolutely amazing. It combines history, art, economics, detective work, and the pure thrill of discovery into one incredibly engaging hobby. And unlike many collectibles, coins are something you interact with every single day, which means every single day brings new opportunities for discovery. So thank you for joining me here on the Numismatic Universe. I hope this deep dive into these three extraordinary nickels has been educational, entertaining, and maybe even a little bit life-changing, because now you have knowledge that most people don't possess. You know what to look for, you know what these errors are worth, and you know that the next fortune might be sitting in your pocket right this very moment. Now get out there, start checking your change, examine those old coin collections, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a multi-million-dollar treasure that's been hiding in plain sight all along. Happy hunting, and remember, fortune favors the observant.